Okay, I think we're going to get started. Thanks everybody for coming along. I know it's a kind of a late shift for everybody. I hope everybody's had a good conference so far. We are here to talk about the product roadmap. Hi Arissa, how are you doing? Good to see you. We're here to talk about the product roadmap. This is a repeat of the session from the other day, so if you came to that already, and are just here for the questions, that's great. Otherwise, it will be the same content. So I'm Will from the Unity product team.
And I'm Stine, also from the product team.
And there we are. There's our full names, which I forgot to click. So the agenda for this presentation, we're going to talk about it in two main sections. So we're going to talk about production updates, so all the different stuff about how you work with Unity, the way that we ship Unity, the editor and how that's evolving, as well as platforms and our connected game strategy. And then we're going to talk about roadmap by role, which is pretty much what it sounds like. So first off, production. So working with Unity, we wanted to talk about how we ship Unity and its features. So first off, we're going to talk about the tech release. So tech release is what we talk about when we say 18.1.2.3. 3 releases throughout the year with patches in between those releases. Now, what we expect people to do with the tech release is to work on pre-production, so to work on prototyping, pre-production, adopt new features, and get to know how that works. Then, when you're expecting to lock down in, move into production with something, we'd like you to adopt the long-term support stream. So basically how this looks is, for example, 17.1 comes out, and 17.2, 17.3, that's the tech release for that year. And then .4 is our long-term support release for that version. So that one is a 24-month supported version of Unity. There are no new feature updates in that time. The entire point of this is to lock down your tech and have a stable platform. We will push stability fixes and platform-centric fixes. So for example, if Apple comes along and says, hey, we just changed this big thing, then we'll backport that and support you. And then there's an overlap of 12 months in the next tech stream, and you can see it just rolls ahead and rolls ahead and rolls ahead. Many clicks. So yeah, like I said, no new functionality in that time. Then packages. Package Manager is something that we shipped in 2018.1, and we've talked a whole lot about it. And a lot of the features that we're talking about in this roadmap presentation are things that will be delivered via the Package Manager. So we wanted to make sure you understand the package world very clearly. So there are 2 types of package. There is a package in preview mode, and there is a verified package. Now, a preview package is something that we consider not ready for production, not supported, but something that's in a feedback cycle. So we made packages available so that we don't have to ship an entire new editor release every time we want to give you a new feature or a new piece of functionality. So the idea is that you can grab a package from the package manager, you don't need a whole new install, and we can also ship updates and work really closely with you to get fixes into this. So the idea is that we want to get this to a point where it's so mature that we consider it viable to be verified with a certain version of Unity. So here's how that looks. So the verified thing is basically we take a whole bunch of packages, say 10, 20, however many it is, and we verify them, run the full QA test pass on them, and we say that these are verified working with this particular version. So for example, just an example, feature will come out in version 1.0, and then over several months, we're working towards making it ultimately stable enough for production. So what we'd like to do in theory is get to a certain point and then say this is verified. But if we don't hit that point, if it's not mature enough, then we'll keep working towards the next verified version. So that's basically how we're going to work with packages. And you can see here we've got semantic versioning feature 1.6 there, and then the final one that we decided was mature enough happened to be 1.8.2, just an example version number there. So that's packages. And finally, the beta. So obviously, there's a whole lot of things that we've been putting into the beta that don't go into packages. Prefabs are one that Stine is going to talk about later. So you will continue to see beta releases of Unity along with the tech stream as a preview of how that version is going to be. And we'd like to say a really big thanks to everybody who's been giving us feedback on the beta. 18.1 was actually the most amount of usage of a beta we've ever seen. And we got so much feedback on that, and hopefully we've made it pretty reliable. So thank you very much for that, guys. Then I want to talk about the editor. So pretty excited about this one. This is one of those things where we're kind of going back to, thanks. a lot of legacy stuff and trying to fix some old problems and really evolve the editor and how it works. We're going to talk about two things, usability, and then we're going to talk about design. So in the short term, a few usability things that we're working on. First one is unified settings. So if, like me, you've spent many hours of your life going to edit, project settings, oh, damn it, I clicked on the wrong thing, edit, project settings, clicked on the wrong thing. We now have this in a unified window. I know it's pretty sad, but I'm quite excited about that. And you can now search it and save many clicks and hours of frustration. Then we're doing the same thing with user preferences. I know this one was already in a consolidated window, but we're matching the style, also making it searchable. Next one is tabs. So this is the start of improving how the editor actually works. What you'll notice about the tabs is that they have a blue highlight. So that blue highlight is there to show you which context you're working in, and you'll see that through the evolution of the editor over time. We're also adding things like hovers to the UI so that you can close with the X button, and there's an overflow arrow to the right so that the tabs will kind of scroll along. And what you can't see in this demo, because I lazily omitted it, was the ability to support long named tabs as well. And you can add tooltips which will show you the full name of the tab. Now, the exciting bit. The editor UI design is also evolving. And we want to really point out that this is a stepwise, iterative, opt-in approach, okay? So we're evolving the editor. We don't want to break anyone's kind of muscle memory and how they, work with the familiarity of the editor. So we're doing incremental changes with this. We're also going to deliver it as a package, so you can opt in, opt out, try it, see how you feel about it. So without further ado, this is the first iteration of a major editor redesign. So this isn't particularly different. Let's take a closer look. All we've done here is we've gotten rid of lots of the gradients, we've consolidated a lot of the different styles, and we've made things more consistent. There's lots of flattened icons, and we have a more consistent font set as well. So this is the first step, and we're aiming to do this in the 18.3 timeframe. And naturally, it comes in a light theme as well. Then, what we'll do next is work towards an actual redesign which changes the way that your workflows are going to behave. So let's take a closer look at this and discuss it a little bit. So this is a mock-up, and it's something we're considering, and it's a direction that we're thinking about. So we want your feedback on this. So give us feedback after this. There's already a whole bunch from the last roadmap talk on Reddit, so you can tell us what you think. Basically, the emphasis we've got here is we're trying to give you a context for what you're doing when you're working. So think about the difference in working on animation to light mapping to any kind of different role, like level layout that you might be doing. You need to have the tools at your kind of fingertips and close to what you're doing, and not kind of dotted around in the same consistent place regardless of your purpose, right? So what you can see here is that in the scene view, we've consolidated a lot of those tools into the scene. So that the idea is that the scene view becomes kind of a document well, so that you can work with a number of different things in different ways. Customize that scene view to what you need and have overlays in a kind of HUD style. So there's not a huge amount of change there, but this is our first kind of like actually different redesign that we're considering. So we're looking forward to your feedback on that. Next up, platforms. So we're going to talk about mobile, console, XR, and Unity for small things, which we talked about a bit in the keynote. So first up is mobile. So the strategy with mobile is we want to give you the biggest reach possible. We want, if there's any kind of new devices, new audiences coming out, we want to make sure that you can reach them right away. We want to make sure that there is the highest quality platform that you can work on possible, so we don't want any regression. We want to keep you productive by having faster iteration times and things like that. So that's adding better support for remotes, quicker deployment, faster iteration. Okay. So some of the things that we're doing towards this, Google Play Instant Games is a new thing from the Play Store. So you can see on the slide there we have a Try Now button. Basically that allows players to jump into your game with a far smaller download size, and so you can kind of attract people to your game that way. In 18.2, we have support for ARM64, so latest chipsets, and the other two features you see there, APK splitting and Android app bundles, coming in 18.2 and 3 respectively, are just different ways of you delivering your content to Android. So making it kind of more modular and more convenient for the player to get hold of what they need. Then another big one, which is pretty cool, IL2CPP C# debugging for iOS and Android. So this basically means no more kind of tracing through tons of C++ that you may or may not be able to actually debug anyway, you can attach directly to the device and debug, get your C#, which is cool. And then in 18.3, we are bringing in our new input system, which of course supports touch. That will be in preview in the 18.3 timeframe even. More on timeline later. Then for graphics, we are optimizing the lightweight render pipeline for mobile, and we're also adding new optimizations to the post-effect stack, so you can do shiny new graphics there too. And then what you'll see throughout this presentation, we'll have these also in development slides. We don't have enough time, unfortunately, to go into everything, but I just thought I'd throw those additional things that are coming up there. Then console. So if if you've worked with console before, if you haven't, we can't actually give you the entire console roadmap. You have to speak to your account manager for that, but we can give you some of the things that we're working on. And the main kind of strategy that we have with console is we really want to get to feature parity across all of those different platforms: Switch, Xbox, PS4. So we've been pushing performance and graphics quite a lot, and these are some of the things that we can talk about. So dynamic resolution is a big one. We want to make sure that that's there for PS4, for Xbox, and Nintendo Switch as well. So basically allowing the resolution to scale slightly down and maintain performance, and that's a really, really cool feature. And then in addition to that, we've just been working on a ton of different performance improvements, rendering improvements, and then a bunch of plugins that are platform specific. Then XR. So we're doing a lot with XR, as you probably guessed. We've done a lot in 18.1 already. Then in 18.2, what we're shipping is more around the remotes and being able to iterate on device. So we're shipping a whole bunch of different remotes, and we're also shipping the ability to work with different input system, which is our multi-platform XR input system, and then HoloLens is also getting a remote as well. So in the way that you used to work with mobile or already work with mobile with a remote, you'll be able to do that with XR stuff as well. Then in 18.3, we're improving the lightweight render pipeline for VR, and in 19.1, we're adding multi-threaded rendering to AR Core, which should make that even snappier. And finally, Unity for Small Things, not specifically a platform, but kind of, so we put it here. So Unity for Small Things is our new tiny runtime. And basically the idea with that is that the runtime is shrunken all the way down. It's based on an ECS architecture and exports to compressed JavaScript. So we can deliver in HTML5 for people who want to make any kind of instant-on games, basically. Which I think is super, super cool, and hopefully will be exciting for anyone who's from the kind of Flash world back in the day. So, connected games. We need to talk about the connected games strategy, and we're going to talk about 3 of these 4 pillars today. We're going to talk about networking, services, and servers. So, let's kick off. We're making a new network transport API, and basically we want to allow you to get into that with some sample template game content. So what we've done, we've built this new layer, and we're also building a first-person shooter template game for it. So it works with existing Unity, and it's also going to be ECS compatible. And then we're going to develop 3 archetypes. So the first one is a first-person shooter, the next a real-time strategy game, and then the next one is Twitch-type games, so fighting games. Okay, so we're going to build you these template games in which you'll be able to inspect, look at the code, and look at how we've approached all of these different things, like dedicated server and client-side prediction, all that kind of stuff. So you'll be able to look at those templates and dig in and see how that new networking system is working. Then servers. So Multiplay recently joined Unity. They're now part of the Unity family. And they are obviously a highly scaled enterprise-level solution. They power things like Titanfall 2 and Rust and lots of other AAA things. But we're also trying to create a scalable solution, which we call self-serve hosting. So basically, the aim with this is to give you something that you can, when you're working in the Unity editor, spin up a Multiplay server and start working with networking with their hosting. And we also know that a lot of people also want Linux server, headless server even. So we've been doing a lot to optimize CPU usage on that, and that's another solution we're going to offer. So in addition to all of those kind of hosting options, we're also working with Google on matchmaking. We've developed this open source matchmaking service, which basically means that you can sort of tailor your game to this open source platform, and it's all powered by GCP, Google Cloud. So hopefully it's super, super robust as well. And we're going to carry on this collaboration. You'll hear more about that in the coming weeks, so have a look at the blog for that. And now we're going to talk about the rest of the roadmap feature-wise by role. And so I'm going to hand you over to Stine, who's going to talk about programmers.
Right, can I get the ticker? Thanks.
You can indeed.
So for programmers, of course, have to press the right way. We keep working on ECS. And some of the things you'll be able to take advantage of already from 2018.2 is the new reactive system, and we'll also have support for async. For arrays and strings. Yeah, thanks, Will. Also in 18.3, we'll have better support for physics with the async C# jobs collision queries. I have a really hard time seeing the screen, but if you didn't see Joachim's talk, then you can find it on YouTube. It's there already now. And if you go to the experimental forums, there are a bunch of documentation and examples to help you get started with reactive systems. News on the burst compiler. So from 18.2, you can already use this in the editor, and you'll be able to build ahead-of-time players for these 5 platforms. As we continue to work on this, towards 18.3 timeframe, we'll focus on ECS performance, determinism, and support for more .NET C# language constructions. We're aiming to have burst out of preview in 18.3. Unity Mathematics. So this is already this is a standalone package that you've already had access to since 2018.1. When you pair this with burst, it can give you incredible performance increases. It's not just for ECS; it actually works with the current Unity. We're pushing to evolve Unity Mathematics, so this is where we'll provide deterministic mathematics functions and types, and you can get it from that link up there. Yep. The memory profiler. It's a new tool that lets you investigate both managed and native memory allocations. We want to make it easy for you to understand what's going on with memory in your game, and we want you to be able to see every allocation so that you can make better decisions about optimizing your memory usage. The memory profiler is out in preview from the 18.3 timeframe. Then we have UI elements. UI elements is a framework, and it's a UI framework for the editor. It's what's going to replace IMGUI, the UI framework that we're already using. Don't worry, it supports IMGUI, so all your existing tools will still work. What's really great about UI elements is that it gives you these CSS-like, it's like this CSS-like styling. It's what we call USS. We're already using UI elements, and currently it's in the experimental namespace, so you can try it out. From 2019.1, we expect that it's going to release that it will get out of the experimental namespace. At that point, it's going to be to have feature parity with IMGUI, but it's much more performant and it's much more accessible. So we really recommend from 2019.1 start making your editor extensions with UI elements. So then we have a much improved cache server for you. Version 6.1 came out yesterday. Some of you might have seen Steven's talk, otherwise I recommend doing that. If you're working in a team, in a local network environment, you should really use this, so go get it from GitHub. Will mentioned it before. We're working on a new input system. finally. And we made it in order to tackle some of the limitations of the existing system. One of the key problems we want to solve is the inability to scale your input to a range of players and devices. We're rolling this out for all our platforms, starting as a preview in the 18.3 timeframe. And then we have animation jobs. So if you ever wanted to access the animation stream, then you can do that from 18.2. You'll be able to do all kinds of things with your animation data. So, for example, you can do IK solvers or add physics forces without directly modifying transforms. It's also fully multi-threaded. Other things in development include our build pipeline and physics upgrades. And now, back to you, Will.
Cool. Okay, so artistes. Let's talk about it. So scriptable render pipeline, the first of two, the lightweight and the HD. So lightweight render pipeline is obviously in preview at the moment. We've been working a lot on that. This is a render pipeline that we consider appropriate for all platforms. So we've talked a lot about it in the realms of mobile, but it's something that works across everything. I'm using it myself to make a PC game, so definitely recommend you try it, see what it's like. So in 18.2, we've done a bunch of things. Optimized tile utilization, for example, is really good for mobile GPUs. And then we're adding distortion path support and shader stripping, which is obviously pretty useful. 18.3 and then is basically about us rounding out the features of the lightweight render pipeline and adding kind of quality. So you get support for ambient occlusion, shader tiers, light probe support, and support for the different light modes that we have in Unity. Then, for those of you doing super sexy graphics, HD render pipeline, of course. This is where we're just putting all of the latest tech in graphics. So you'll see a whole bunch of features there, which I'm not going to read out all at once. One that I'd like to call out, which is pretty cool, is that we just added support in 18.2 beta for the shader graph. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But you're getting things like volumetrics. You saw a bit of that in the keynote yesterday with Harold Halibut. And then things like reflection, refraction. And then another one to call out is the stacklit shader in 18.3, which is super cool. Really nice PBR shader. And also the hair shader, which you saw on the Wind Up the Little Girl demo with the facial animation in the keynote. So very cool stuff coming in the HD render pipeline. Then shader graph. If you haven't tried shader graph yet and you are an artist, do recommend it. Super fun tool to work with. For me, as someone, I'm not a very good programmer, so I can't really write shaders, and probably just too lazy to learn, but I really like how this system works, and it's been working well for me so far. This one we're showing off vertex modification, which is a new feature in the 18.2 compatible version. And then we're just adding a whole bunch of features and new nodes all the time to this tool. So you'll see a ton of updates. Always check back in the package manager to see if there's a new update to your shader graph. Then light mapping. We're doing a whole bunch of things with our progressive light mapper, such as configurable fall-off. That's also coming to Enlighten in 18.3. And then we're also optimizing a lot of how it uses the CPU in 18.3 and also sorting out more coherent packing for maps. Then round tripping. So basically what this incredibly fast-forwarded video shows is FBX export. So this is a round tripping workflow, if you haven't heard about it already, between 3ds Max, Maya, LT. So you can export FBX generally and obviously use that in any package. But what you get from this collaboration with Autodesk is that you can basically get all of the things you want. So you get cameras, you get materials with the Stingray shader, you get constraints, and there's some others I'm forgetting. And then, yeah, the hierarchy obviously matches. Yeah, so all kinds of things come across. So what we're showing off here is creating a quick cutscene animatic with the car from Anti-Graviator. So thanks to those guys for that. And then animating something with timeline, having a character walk up to it. And then basically what you can do with this is end up with complete parity between Maya and Unity. So it looks like this at the end. Wait for it. Ta-da. There it is. Pretty cool. And we're also adding constraints for animation, so we're making it more convenient for you to animate things without getting kind of tied up in knots with hierarchies and parenting and all that kind of stuff. So now you can, drop on a constraint component. Like, for example, with this, you can see the cube is actually just loose in the hierarchy. And then if we move the cube around, the light gets constrained to it. You don't have to write a script and blah, blah, blah. Super cool. And then physical cameras, like I said, is another one of those things that has parity. So when you have camera in Maya, it's going to bring across things like focal length and angle of view and stuff like that. And in addition, also blend shapes are coming across now. Then UI, so runtime UI. So as you may have heard, TextMesh Pro developers joined Unity, and they've been working to integrate that more closely in Unity. So what you'll see in 18.2 is it's available via the package manager. We've standardized all of the UI to make it look more Unity-like and more familiar. And then in 19.1, we're adding, in that time frame, we're adding in preview things like support for open type fonts, etc. Then SVG support. So again, another cool thing if you're used to working in vectors. So this video is showing a workflow from Illustrator. So I've basically exported this Hello Berlin SVG, and we can do all kinds of things. So for example, here we're doing clipping with it. It has support for patterns. You can style it with CSS. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. And what you can also do, which is pretty great, is to choose the tessellation. Because the way this works is they don't come in natively as an SVG, but we take that, that vector data and turn it into a mesh. So you choose the tessellation options that you want, choose your level of quality that way. Then finally, last but no means least, the VFX editor. We're really excited about this one. So this is a whole suite of VFX tools that go far beyond anything you can do with just particles alone. So it's a huge, again, just like shader graph, and it's using the node graph stack that we've got there. And you can create your own nodes. It's fully programmable, and it's tailored for very next-gen platforms. So this is using GPU compute, and as such, it's going to be specific to the HD render pipeline for now. So you'll just see that. So if you're excited about getting your hands on this later in the year, in 18.3 time frame, keep saying that, then I do encourage you to get into HD Render Loop. You're going to be ready when we drop the first iteration of the VFX editor. Then the recorder, another great little feature. If you want to export animation clips, then you can just record them with this. But it also supports exporting GIFs, image sequences, video files, anything that you want to do exporting out of Unity. So the really great thing about this that we just added as well, you can trigger it at runtime. So if there's a specific bit of a game or something that's happening, you can just bind a script or press a key or do something to trigger it. But also what you can do if you're trying to record like super high quality stuff and downsample and cheat and get some nice anti-aliasing out of it, like we definitely never do. What you can do is to export like huge 8K things, leave it running, and you can do multiple recorders at once. So you can see on the left column here, we've got a whole bunch of different recorders. Leave it running, export a whole ton of different things all at once, save yourself a lot of time. Then, animators. We are introducing a complete suite of animation for 2D characters. So this means bone module, and it means being able to skin a complete sprite. So you can go through your sprite, add weights, add bones, and animate with it. So that's all coming with a 2D IK system as well, which is awesome, in 18.2. Then in 18.3, we have support for multi-sprite characters rigged as well. So you can have highly detailed characters with a whole bunch of different sprites that obviously more convenient for your workload. You can update them independently. Then 3D. Saw this in the keynote. So this is from Michael Butner, our AI researcher. He's been working on this tech for a long time. And basically, the emphasis on this that we want to put across is that this is not a system that relies on very detailed blend trees. What it does is it uses a database of potential animation poses and then uses machine learning to predict ahead based on the direction of the character as to what pose it should use. So this isn't just another alternative, and it's rounding out our suite of different options of how to animate things. So at a very simple level, you've got the animation component, and that's being superseded by what we call the simple animation component. That's not available as a package yet, but it is on GitHub, and I do encourage everyone who's working on simple games, like maybe mobile games, who just needs to animate UI and things like that, check out the simple animation component. Then you've got the animator with the blend trees and all of that kind of stuff you'll be familiar with. And then we're working on motion matching as well. So all of these things are going to work in parallel. Then finally, timeline. Very exciting. finally have our event system ready for you. It's called Signals, and you're going to be able to add events into the timeline itself, as well as to attach to clips, which you can see over here. Another really useful workflow addition is we're adding audio scrubbing, so obviously going to make it much easier to sync certain things. And we're adding support for root offsets, so it just makes it a bit more convenient to animate certain things. And now, I'm going to hand over to Stine for designers. And I've gone ahead one, I'm sorry.
Thanks. Yes, so if you saw the keynote, we are introducing a whole suite of new features that are all designed to improve the prefab workflows. All of these, also 2 days ago, we launched a preview build, so I really encourage you to go and try it and give us your feedback. In this preview build, you'll see one of the first key, we have 3 key features. The first one is prefab mode. Prefab mode it lets you open a prefab in an isolated view and then edit the prefab asset directly. So now, if you notice autosave is on, we'll just see the video loop one more time. But when you get in there and we have autosave on, then when you make edits to the tree, it's saved directly to the asset. So you see the changes you make directly in the game view, almost instantly. Of course, we added nested prefabs. And here we see an example where you have a tree, and then you have 4 different prefabs nested in it. And by using prefab mode, you can actually dig through those nested prefabs all the way through to the flower and then the firefly. And if you look up at the top, you'll see a breadcrumb hierarchy, or like
Trail?
Trail, a breadcrumb trail that you can use to navigate all the way back to the scene. All right, the third feature we added is what we call prefab variants. A prefab variant inherits the properties from its own properties from another prefab. So changes you make to the prefab variant, they override the properties of the original prefab it inherits from. Let's take a look at it. So what's happening here is we're creating a prefab variant, and then we're actually creating a prefab variant of that variant. And we can make just a few changes to those variants, like just changing properties like speed or size, but everything else is inherited from the original prefab base. Back to you.
Yep,
Will?
sure. So terrain, obviously something that everybody has been waiting for updates for just a little while, and finally we have some for you. So we're doing a lot with the UX of the terrain, so we're doing a whole ton of different things for brushes. And what you can see here is the stamp tool, which lets you preview what you're doing. We're allowing for painting across tiles in terrain. Brushes are GPU accelerated, there's better previews, you get thumbnails. You can do all kinds of new things with this, it's pretty cool. In addition, we're improving the rendering with per pixel mesh normals, and that's independent of LOD. And it also supports those 2 render pipelines that I mentioned earlier. So you can see the difference from this image to this image. So it's looking better. Then the terrain is also far more scriptable than it ever was before. We're exposing the height maps and the splat maps to you, so you can play around with them. And you can also add your own tools, customize everything as you want it. And this is kind of how we've done some of this stuff. So there's big improvements to performance as well, and I mean really big. So you can see what we've done here is we've gone from the legacy, which does a lot of stuff on the CPU, through to the new update, which does basically everything on the GPU. So the kind of advances we've got out of this is that we've got twice as fast CPU performance. There's around 30 times fewer garbage collection allocations. And then we've got just 100 times fewer draw calls, like literally. It's crazy better. Then, world building for 2D, we're adding pixel perfect cameras. So if you're working on 2D games, they're going to look really, really, really crisp. Actually look pixel perfect as opposed to nearly pixel perfect. Then in 2D world building, Sprite Shape is another great tool. You saw that in the keynote the other day, adding support for that. Thanks to Zoink Games for the artwork there. And also thanks, I forgot to say, which is very rude of me, to Toad Productions for their artwork there. So Sprite Shape basically allows you to draw sprites along a Bezier curve, fill them in with a tiled set of sprites as well. And we're shipping that in 18.2. It's in beta now. You can go and grab it. And then the next thing we're doing with Tile Map in 18.2 is adding support for hexagonal tiles. So thanks to David Baumgart there. And this is support for both flat top and point top hexagonal tiles. So if you're doing these kind of strategy games, it's going to be really useful for you, hopefully. Then 18.3, we're adding support for isometric tiles, which I think is going to be super cool. And there's lots of options for fixing, those kind of sorting issues that you might get when you're working with isometric tiles as well. Thanks to CryptoGene for that one. Then finally, Cinemachine. We love Cinemachine, and it's getting a nice update in 18.2. You can get this version 2.2 package right now on the Pac-Man. Package Manager. Pac-Man is what we call it internally because we're nerds. And so what we're showing here is just a couple of new features. So this one that we're showing off is called the Impulse module. So basically, screen shake, but it does a whole bunch of different things. So what you see in this bomb demo is that the camera is being affected relative to where it is. So the bomb goes off at a certain distance and then a certain vector relative to it. And you can see when we change to a scene view here, you can see the closer the explosion, the more that I get impacted by that. So you can get kind of real-world explosions. If an explosion happens over here, we can shake the camera this way, for example. And then a whole bunch of other cool stuff coming to Cinemachine. Physical lens definition, so you'll be able to pick a set of lenses. So if you're not familiar with movie production, typically you don't shoot with lots of different lenses, lots of different focal ranges. You pick 1, 2, 3 lenses to shoot with. And so we tried to carry that kind of approach through to Cinemachine. And then finally, we've updated the target group module as well, so it's a bit more robust and hopefully supports a whole bunch of different things. So to wrap up, just wanted to give you a quick overview of what we're trying to do here so you understand our way of thinking. So we're trying to provide a flexible editor and features. We tried to keep every Unity user happy, not just programmers, no offense, guys. And we're trying to maintain quality through a close feedback loop. So that's packages delivering things to you at higher frequency. And then we're trying to evolve a lot of legacy systems. So you see that with the editor, you see it with prefabs, you see it with terrain. And then finally, we're trying to just push forward with tech and with the workflows that you have. Thank you, folks. So the rest of our product management team are dotted around at the back here. Wave your hands, guys. There they are. Oh, one at the front. Hi, JC. So if you have any questions, please do come up to the mics here, and we're going to do our best to answer them for you. Don't be shy. Yeah, I might shoot off as well, actually. No questions? No one curious? So what we're taking from this is that we've done everything you could ever want, right? Sorry, question.
I think you are, yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, thanks for the talk. That looks like a lot of exciting stuff is coming up. I got a, pretty basic request, actually.
Okay.
You briefly mentioned the redesign of the settings windows into that one big screen or one big window, which is a great thing. So while you're at it, could you think about reorganizing them a little? Because it just, my brain just cannot remember where the graphic stuff is, because it's like in player or quality or graphics.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you.
So is this, it's planned to reorganize this a little?
Yeah, we're going to be looking at that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
I totally agree. It doesn't make any sense.
Thank you for the talk. Can you tell me where we can touch beta version of UI elements?
I mean, UI elements is in there now. It's just an experimental namespace. So you can, where's Benoit actually? He's over there. This guy knows. He's in charge of that area. He can give you a full overview of it.
So yeah, it's already available in the experimental namespace. So Unity editor experimental.UI element.
Could you talk into the mic a bit more, Ben?
We're still introducing new features with 18.3, and it's coming out as an official release with 19.1. But you can already start playing with it and experimenting, and give us your feedback about it. Curious to know. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? Here's one.
Yeah, I have one question about the painting tools.
About what, sorry?
About painting tools.
Yes.
Like, anything with your Paint in Unity brushes on the terrain. If you can add pressure sensitivity for the tablets.
That's a very good question. I'm not entirely sure. Who am I looking for? Arissa? Where's Arissa? There she is. Oh, not yet. But is it planned? I can't hear you, I'm sorry. As a big fan,
Isn't that a bit more like input in Corey, like pressure sensitivity overall from an editor point of view?
Yes, it is, actually. There he is.
It's planned.
Okay, it's planned. So it's more from the input side. Sorry, Arissa. Anybody else? Question over here?
Unity joined the .NET group or something like that, and I wondered if we will now always get the latest C# features. So we already got that .NET 4.6, which is really great. But there are new C# versions like every few months, so I wondered if we will get those features too.
So you got new things, but you want even more, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
So Corey can maybe answer this, or
yeah. So the plan is not day and date with the new features, but we are definitely being to not trail by orders of years, more on the orders of months. So yes, we should be getting another update relatively soon to like C# 7 features and things like that. And then again, like not exactly when the new features come out, but relatively soon after, comparatively to what we've done in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Corey. Anyone else? Wait.
Yeah. Do you have any plans to support WebGL on mobile?
WebGL on mobile, that's a good question. Who have we got for that? Where's JC? There he is.
No, not as...
No.
Not, so Unity for small things, like we presented in the keynote, today it's 2D, HTML, CSS, but by design it's been planned to support 3D as well. So when we reach 3D in the Unity for small thing architecture, we will deliver a 3D experience on mobile and on the web technology, and it's very likely it works using WebGL technologies, but it's going to be another way of generating it. Don't consider the current Unity WebGL export ever run smoothly on mobile. If you have a super high-end phone, very powerful, it may run, but we're not optimizing for that.
Anyone else? Thanks, JC. Anybody else? Going once, twice. Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.